Ladies and gents, this is a long video. It's about 20 minutes long, but it's worth every second of it, listening to Siobhan Dunnavant talk about, Senator Siobhan Dunnavant talk about her district, about her personal life, about the issues. She goes into great detail about the issues of healthcare, education, the economy, and law enforcement. She'll talk about her performance as a senator, a proven performer. She's asked a question about why and how she's different than her competitor, and she gives a great, long, meaty answer with lots of detail. You should listen to that, I think. She's asked a VMI question, and she goes for the extent of the video talking about VMI and the value proposition of VMI. We endorse her, and then she continues to talk about VMI. I think you'll really enjoy this video. Please watch it to its entirety. Good evening. I'm Matt Daniel. I'm the chairman of the Spirit of VMI. And tonight we have an interview, a discussion with Senator and Dr. Siobhan Dunnavant from the 16th, or running for the Senate District 16 in Virginia. Hello, Senator Dunnavant. How are you?
I am very well. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're welcome. Also with me is our vice chairman, Chairman Clint Hubbard, who is class of 1986 and actually is a constituent of the senators. Hey, Clint.
Hi, nice to see you, Senator.
Hello, so good to see you too.
Sure.
And additionally, we've got Joe Eli, class of 1988 at VMI, and he's our political strategist who tries to keep us straight in the political action committee of the Spirit of VMI. Hey, Joe.
Good evening, Senator. Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much for having me.
So real quickly, Senator, what we are, the Spirit of VMI, I'm sure you've heard of us. Clinton has told you about us, I'm sure, or you've met people that have come to your functions as well. But we're basically founded to elevate the idea of VMI in legislators and candidates' minds, so they understand the value proposition of duty, honor, integrity, patriotism, and the citizen soldier ethos when they get to their position in the Capitol in Richmond, and so that honestly they can behave accordingly and protect the legacy values of VMI. So that's what we're here to do. We've been doing this since about early 2020, and we played heavily in the last election. You were already, it wasn't a midterm for you or anything, so it was the House of Delegates and the executive branch of government, and we've gotten to know a lot of politicians and have learned a lot more than what we wanted to know about politics, honestly. And so here we are again in 23, which is an even more critical year, I think, in order to get things done and momentum to keep it going in the state of Virginia. So you're one of the ones that we want to talk to because you're a pivotal race and a key race for us to look at. We're interviewing probably 16 candidates across the House and the Senate in Virginia in preparation for this, and we'll do endorsements for a good number of those. So can you tell me a little bit about your district and what the outline is?
I will. My new district, the 16th, is now just Western Henrico. So the 12th, which was my previous district, was Western Hanover and Western Henrico, and I now just have the limits of Western Henrico. I don't have every precinct right next to the city, but most all of them. And so that is my area, and I'm happy to tell you a little bit about me if you would like this in context for that area. Well, I'll start by saying I do get VMI. My son is a graduate of the class of 14. My dad's a Naval Academy graduate. Thank you. I have 3 nephews that are graduates of VMI.
All right.
I have a niece that went to the Naval Academy and class of 2008, and I have 2 brothers that are Naval Academy graduates. My dad moved 19 times and moved his family 19 times in his service of the country in the U.S. Navy as a fighter pilot, as surface line, and also as command and control in Vietnam in the River Patrol Forces, setting up a command and control there. So military structure, military values, patriotism, discipline, timeliness, those are all attributes that are deeply seated in my psyche. So I love talking with VMI because it is like coming home. And so I'm glad you guys have this organization. I am the only physician in the entire legislature, 140 people now. I work full time. I'm sorry I didn't have time to get out of my scrubs. I did get my son's VMI pin on, so I do have my VMI pin on, but I work as a full-time OBGYN still. Even during session, I see patients during those hours. So while you are dealing with a lot of politicians, I like to consider myself a citizen legislator because I think Virginia has that right. And when you are fully employed and your income for your family is predicated on you winning your reelection, that sets an inappropriate incentive for what you're doing and why you're doing it. And for me, it's deeply rooted in my sense of community service. And it's actually a translation of community service I was performing before I was ever elected in Henrico, where we've been living now for almost 25 years. And I've delivered thousands of babies and we raised our children. So, the getting something done, which is, I think, probably a very VMI philosophy. My son, by the way, is in his second year at law school at William and Mary after serving 5 years in the Army. So he's doing extremely well as a result of his education. But, I really ran because I was at a point where I was frustrated that things were not getting done. And too much of the conversation was political and it wasn't practical. And I really saw an enormous number of practical things that needed to be done, partially because the government was in the way and partially because they weren't solving problems that were important. And that is what I've done since I've been in the legislature. I will point out that I have never been able to pass a bill that didn't have bipartisan support. The Democrats have had the majority or the gubernatorial mansion the entire time I've been in office. And yet I've gotten an enormous amount of things done. In fact, I counted last night as I prepare for a campaign, and I have passed 104 bills in the beautiful state of Virginia. And they're practical bills. There are things like making sure community colleges, and my son going to VMI had this problem. Community colleges standardize all of their core curriculum classes. And they're likewise standardized with all of the four-year public universities in Virginia. So if a kid takes one of those classes at a community college, it's the exact same thing and it's guaranteed to be credit for them when they go to a four-year. This is a problem because when I was elected, kids were spending 2 years in community college, 4 years in four-year college, and going into debt that we've all heard about. It was very, very in need of being streamlined. They have now done the research looking at that bill, and it is saving families $20,000 on a four-year education in Virginia. I do a lot of work in the healthcare space, doing things like Smart Chart that I passed last year, which building on something I did in the past called ED care coordination, which is where all of the emergency rooms now can share information even though they're on different EMR platforms. And this actually came from a personal experience as well. My mother-in-law went to 3 ERs when she was having abdominal pain. She had early dementia. They did, in 1 week, she had 3 abdominal CTs. And so incredible expense, unnecessary, and she didn't have anything wrong. Now in modern Virginia, all the other ERs know that CT's already been done somewhere else and it doesn't need to be repeated. And decreasing duplicate testing is one of the very few ways we can actually reduce the cost of health care. And now I've extended that, and it will be present in all providers' offices within the next 3 years, so that when you go to see your doctor, and my patient, for instance, comes in and said, I had my thyroid checked and I didn't really understand what my doctor said, or she talked about my blood count, I now cannot confer with my patient and kind of give her some extra layer of medical information because I don't have that lab. That won't be true anymore in Virginia. And you know what? It doesn't cost anything either because we're building it off of the ED care coordination program. K-12 education. I'm the one that carried the bill to open schools when the governor closed them and would not reopen them. And that was a bipartisan bill that I was able to get through despite the fact that it was killed 3 times before I finally got it passed. So I really believe that we are in need of common sense leadership that focuses not on contentious, dividing, debates that seem to never be resolved, although I'm happy to step forward and lead in those debates, as I have on many things. But I'm there to get the things done that other people aren't paying attention to, but really make a difference in our lives. So that's kind of my philosophy, where I come from. I'm definitely deeply rooted in developing and resolving problems in K-12, higher ed, and healthcare. And then that overlaps obviously to the economy, healthcare workforce, tax rebates, individual deduction increases, all things that I have carried and worked on. And of course, supporting our police officers, because two of my brothers that didn't go into military service did go into service in law enforcement. And my brother was a police officer, not two of my brothers, and my nephew. So deeply rooted family service in that is the place that I come from. And I represent that up there as I defend what I think should be the limits of government, but the wise, prudent investment of the valuable dollars we give them.
Sign me up. Sign me up. I swear. Honestly, I don't think I need to ask you any questions. I'm bought and sold. I think we do have one question from Joe Eli, who had sent us this question earlier about the independent voter. Joe?
Yes, thank you, Matt. Senator, that was definitely an all-encompassing response or initial statement that you've made, and it really seems that you're a very accomplished person to have in the General Assembly. And basically, the only question I had was, it seems to me that this new district is going to be one of the toughest of the toss-ups for the Republicans to win. And I was wondering if you had a message for the independents that would draw a distinction between yourself and your opponent.
I do indeed. I have several. And that message, and first of all, I will say, I am the only Republican senator in Virginia that was elected in a district that Hillary won. So I've already been elected in the district when it was hard before. So I know how to do this. I have the resources, the determination, and now after 8 years in, the experience to make this a very data-driven campaign. I think one of the things that I love about medicine and I don't like about politics is how many decisions are made in the absence of data or perspective. And I wasn't willing to risk this race on that. So I know exactly what messages move the independents and the Democrats. I get a unusually large amount of soft Democrat votes as well when I run and have run in the past. And I think that may have to do with me delivering their babies, but maybe my message too. But the couple of things are the center theme is actions speak louder than words. And that's what my mother taught me. And I have an opponent who is challenging my seat that says that he is a defender of women's health care. He hasn't carried a single health care bill. His definition of that is that he supports abortion. And I will point out he was co-patron of a bill that actually made it easier to have an abortion up to the moment of birth. And while most people are in alignment with my position, which is that abortion stays legal in the first trimester and it's limited afterward, and it doesn't happen after a baby is viable, his position is an outlier, and I know that it turns swing voters to me. He has also taken some votes that I think were very imprudent. Some of the ones that particularly, draw out the independent and swing voters are that he voted to make it easier for people to get parole, people who had been felons that had been convicted of violent felonies, including child pornography, reducing their time in jail up to 50%. I voted against that bill. He voted against a bill I carried, which was to make sure that parents are aware of sexually explicit material in the curriculum. So this is not libraries or library books, but this is when a teacher is going to use a sexually explicit novel in their class or some other subject, the parent needs to know. We are the foremost educators of our children. We are the ones that provide continuity over all the years that they're in different classes. We need to have the opportunity to have that conversation with our child. And we also need to be able to say, my child, albeit is of that chronologic age, is not developmentally ready for that conversation. I want an alternative. I want an alternative book. that seems like it's totally common sense to us and how it really should be. The teacher who's running against me voted against that bill. So there are a multitude of actual votes. He has a record. He has been in the House of Delegates for 6 years. He says that he's an affable, bipartisan consensus builder. I'm a teacher. I'm a likable guy. But what he's accomplished in the Senate is a poverty of accomplishment. He doesn't seem to be able to build bipartisan consensus. And that's really part of the integrity of what we do. If we just cram things down people's throats because we get majority in every arena and we can't actually build consensus, then shame on us. But I can. And I do build consensus, and I think that's the right way to legislate. So there are an enormous number of variables that we will use to make that contrast of actions speak louder than words, that demonstrate I am of the district and represent their values, that I work hard for them and get things actually accomplished. I don't just propose bills and studies that don't pass. And so that will be the thread that we will use, that we have all the evidence will be very successful. And
Thank
we've
you.
already polled, and we know, despite, this is a D+8 district, which means Democrats have a generic 8-point advantage. When we poll him to me, even before we've informed the voters of those issues, I win by 1.
Well,
That will change because he will say ugly, awful things about me. The difference is what I say about him will be true. I cannot speak to the converse. But the bottom line is I will inform the voters and connect with them in an authentic way. They know I'm not blowing smoke. They know I'm a hard worker. They know I'm not just spouting aspirations. I'm getting the job done.
thank you.
Well, we'll do what we can to get that word out and help you out. I know Clint has a VMI question. Clint?
Sure. Senator, thanks for being I knew you were VMI mom. I did not realize you had all the other family ties. So this will be a very easy question, I think, for you. But the Spirit of VMI Political Action Committee supports the time-honored values of integrity, leadership, patriotism, and the citizen soldier ethos that really is what VMI is all about. Can we count on your supporting the Spirit of VMI and the quest to keep those values alive and well at the Institute?
100%. And I will fight as I have in the past when you guys were under assault. And I will stick up for you with absolute steely-spined mom assertion. And that is formidable.
Yes, it is.
Nothing is formidable as a mom, as an angry mom.
Yep. A fierce mom.
A fierce mom. I like that. Yes.
Right.
Fierce mothers.
Well, I think it's safe to say that we will want to support you, and we will support you. I think that, and we talked about this before, that unless we just totally misunderstood who you were, then we're going to throw our endorsement behind you and are proud to do it. So if you can, first of all, have you seen one of these things before?
I don't know that I have. Let me see. Oh, yes, I have. Yes.
Okay, well, we're going to get you one.
Mine. It's not as cute as my little logo, my VMI symbol.
Well,
I guess I can wear that.
Maybe it's a challenge coin, so we'll make sure you.
Oh, I see your hat too. That's the logo and the brand. I got it.
Yes, ma'am. So if we can get you to say VMI is good, I think it'll seal the deal for us, and we can let you have your rest of your Tuesday night back.
I think you should put your expectations higher. VMI is good. VMI is amazing. It is outstanding and great. And keep training those formidable heroes that go and do all that your graduates have done for Virginia. If I could make a list of the people who are business leaders that have done so much conscientiously and selfishly for Virginia, I would say 2/3 of them are VMI graduates. And so thank you for your service and what you guys do for Virginia.
Well, perfect. Wow.
2025 candidate for governor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
She could do it. She could do it if she wins this race in a tough district like that, and as intelligent and articulate as she is. She even brought up the abortion issue. She's not afraid of anything.
Yep.
No. And And who's got a better right to talk about it than an OBGYN?
We didn't have to ask a single question because she answered all these things before we got to them. I'm glad Joe and Clinton, you guys had those questions teed up, so that helped to kind of break it up a little bit. But really, she went on autopilot, and
yeah,
that was great to see. And boy, I feel like I should buy a house in your district there, Clint. And go,
the guy she's running against, man, is I don't know, man. I'm sure he's a decent enough person, but it's the comparison from what I've seen. It's an eagle and a sparrow, man.